It's about the I gotta say, it's the stupidest thing in sports.
Gets the ball, gets back, pulls up for the win. Got it! Detroit basketball. Holloman looks the clock, has scored for the win. The Lions go for it, the Vikings bring it. The pass is a touchdown to give. Javi Baez homered earlier. First one in the air, deep left field again. Yes, Tigers win! Bobby is unstoppable!
This is BS Sports.
And away we go. Welcome one, welcome all. I'm currently watching my beloved Michigan State Spartans down 10 to Rutgers. So not feeling great about that, but we're not going to be talking college basketball today. At least not primarily. So got a lot to get to. I have a question, and it's the question of the show, which is this the craziest NFL season ever? Because I am convinced it is. Like, this is the season. This is the season to me that we're going to look back on and be like, did anybody get any predictions right going into this year? Because I don't think anybody did. I certainly didn't. We'll get to that later in the show. But this season is just insanity, just complete insanity. So we'll get into that a little bit, but we'll also just get into the particulars of both the AFC and NFC championship games. And, let's just do it. Let's jump into it. Super Bowl set. We're going to have a rematch of over 10 years ago, the New England Patriots and the Seattle Seahawks. By the way, two teams that missed the playoffs last year are competing for the Super Bowl, meaning that a team that was not in the playoffs last year will win the Super Bowl, which is just crazy. Just crazy. And also, both of those teams won their respective divisions. So, it's craziness. It's craziness that this is the Super Bowl that we got. I want to give whoever had money on this being the Super Bowl, I want to shake that person's hand and just allow for that human being to predict all future sporting events, because I don't think anybody could have really predicted this. It's insanity that this is how it ended up. But talk first about that AFC title game. So this game to me was just kind of sad. This was just like a pathetic, sad game. Now, pathetic not in as much as, obviously Denver down to their backup quarterback. You're not really going to fault a team who, with their backup in a championship game, he's not going to play well. He had a game-losing pick. It is what it is. Nobody expects Jarrett Stidham to go out there and win you Super Bowls. That's why he's a backup. On the other hand, one like Drake May and the Patriots played some amazing game. May threw for less than 100 yards. Ramondre Stevenson ran for less than 100 yards. They really didn't do much of anything. They just they scored in the second quarter and got a field goal in the third, and that was it. And it was just putting the throttle on. I mean, Denver had an early lead. They thought maybe Jarrett Stidham was going to be their Nick Foles, but he was not. He was not even really close to that. Because Nick Foles could actually beat the Patriots. So he's got that going for him. But the thing about this game in particular that was, I guess, the most entertaining was that there was snow by the end. I was watching the game, and it was the third quarter, and I was like, oh, look, it's kind of snowing. It's like-misty. And then by the fourth quarter, they got the graphics on the CBS broadcast so that you could see the yard lines. I was like, what in the world happened? How did this anyway? The other thing I wanted to point out about this is that Denver all season long, they came into this playoffs as the number one overall seed in the AFC, best record in the AFC. They had been winning games by the skin of their teeth all season long. And to lose a game, the final game of your season, by the skin of your teeth, you just hate to see it. It could not have happened to a nicer coach in Sean Payton. I mean, I'm just going to go down the record here. As far as games here for them, they beat the Chiefs just 20-13. That was a bad Chiefs. That was the Patrick Mahomes no longer on that team. Chiefs. They beat the Raiders 24-17. They beat the Commanders 27-26. Those both teams missed the playoffs. Beat the Chiefs the first time, just 22-19. They beat the Raiders 10-7, 18-15 over the Texans. The 33-32 win over the Giants, 13-11 against the Jets. I mean, they were not dominating teams. They were winning by the skin of their teeth, but the win's a win. They get themselves to the championship game, and unfortunately, Bo Nix has no chance to really silence the doubters because he gets hurt, and your season's gone, just like that. I will say, though, on the other end, New England, the Patriots, Drake May really has not played well for most of the playoffs. He had the multiple turnover game against the Texans. They didn't really do much offensively against the Chargers. Now, granted, to him, give him some credit. He's had to play against some really tough defenses, and his team has come away with a win. But he's going to have to play another tough defense in Seattle come February the 8th. So not going to be fun for him, I would imagine. But that's the AFC. I guess congrats to the New England Patriots. They're back. So if you didn't like the Patriots and you thought maybe you could live for, a long time and not get to see them back in Super Bowls, didn't take them very long. Last Super Bowl appearance was 7 years ago, and they're right back in it. So now to the NFC. The ginger quarterback curse is broken. I'm convinced. Sam Darnold has broken the curse. So congratulations to all gingers out there in the world, all aspiring quarterbacks who are ginger. Sam Darnold has proven that you can be a ginger and win big games. I will say, going into this year, I think my belief in Sam Darnold was as low as it could be. I thought that end of the season for him with Minnesota was putrid. There was a pathetic way to go out, losing to Detroit and then losing in the playoffs to LA. I mean, this has got to be sweet victory for all the Sam Darnold truthers. He has come away big, and he has legitimately put himself into the category of one of the great stories in sports. I mean, this was a guy, one of the top picks in the draft a couple of years ago with the Jets. Then he goes to the Panthers, doesn't get much of anything there. Then he's a backup in San Francisco. Then he's a backup in Minnesota. Then his starter, J.J. McCarthy, gets hurt. He comes in. He looks amazing. He almost wins the division with Minnesota. Then he goes to Seattle because they believed in McCarthy more than they believed in him because of how bad he played down the stretch. And now he's in the Super Bowl. If you would have told anyone 5 years ago that Sam Darnold would be one of the top quarterbacks in the league going to the Super Bowl against the Patriots without Tom Brady, people would have said you're on drugs. And you might be on drugs, but it's unrelated to the, whether the statement was true, because it is true. And also shout out Michigan State, Kenneth Walker. Shout out to Spartan legend, Kenneth Walker. He had a decent, not a great game. He had a touchdown, 62 yards, but he carried the ball 19 times. So wasn't an amazing game from K9, but certainly was there. Certainly was an effective player on their team. And it's really the story about this Seahawks team is their defense. Their defense is clutch. And I know that they gave up 27 points, nearly 30 points, and it really came down to a 4th and goal, basically. But, sometimes it's bend, don't break, especially in the playoffs. You can give up the big yards, you can give up the big numbers. Matthew Stafford threw for over 300 yards, but he didn't have that final drive, and that's all that matters, right? That's all. That's the only thing that people are going to look at in the history books. So, on the other end, on LA, it is kind of sad. I think they played a good enough game to win. Stafford and his team just couldn't connect at the final drive there with the 4th and I think it was 4th and goal, or maybe 4th and it was 4th and a touchdown. They were shooting for the end zone. MVP voting is already done. Obviously, it's based on the regular season, or they don't do it based on the playoffs. But given the Rams going from given Matthew Stafford going from looking like he's going to win his division, looking like he's going to be the 1 seed, to losing both the division and the 1 seed, not really playing amazingly in the playoffs. Now, granted, most of that is the defense not keeping up with Stafford, but either way, he didn't play a great game against the Panthers. He played a fine game against the Bears. That game got too close, though. Again, defense. And in this game, people are going to focus on that final drive, but obviously he played a great game there. In my mind, I feel like he deserves the MVP. but so does Drake May. I mean, Drake May's in the Super Bowl, and I know again it doesn't take into consideration playoffs, all that. I understand. I'm very well aware of how the MVP voting works, but at the same time, you know, if in my mind, if we're gonna announce the winner after, I don't know why we shouldn't consider it before. Anyway, that's a different debate, different discussion. But either way, so you're going to have Seattle and New England, two teams that have met in the Super Bowl. New England has the 1-0 record against them. I'm not going to get into predictions just yet. We're going to keep that for next week, but this all adds into the point that I will make, especially in my preseason win total predictions. This whole season, this whole NFL 2025-2026 season has been a complete psychotic mess. Nobody knows what's going on. It's just total craziness. And that's why the NFL gets the big ratings. That's why. I mean, like, you look at other leagues, you look at other sports, even, you know, you can largely predict who's going to do well. In the NFL, we're going to see in just a second. It's very hard to predict. I don't think anybody in their right mind thought that these two teams would be the final two teams standing. And that's what makes it fun. So after all the monologuing I did, Michigan State's still down 10. I hate it here. Can anybody on our team please hit a 3? Just anybody. 10 turnovers for Michigan State. Rutgers has 1. They've got 17 points off turnovers. It's crazy. They're taking care of the rock. Oh my gosh. Now we're down 12, dude. If we lose to Rutgers, we got Michigan on Friday. I do not want like stalled momentum going into one of the biggest games of the year. Like, if we lose this game, we're probably not going to win the Big Ten. Even if we do win out. Oh, that's a nice shot. What is that? Is that Carr? Carr just hit a 3. That's crazy. Okay, well, whatever. You're back to a 9-point game. Whatever. All right. Now, I've done this before, and I realize that I was... Hold on, I just want to make sure. Okay, I'm going to undo that. Can I get color? Okay, here we are. All right, so let me just get this all set up here. Give me just 1 second. Share screen, window, MS Paint. Okay, and I want to do, let's do that. I wish I could make it like, that kind of works. Yeah. Not looking good in New Jersey. No, not yet. Not so far. But still got a whole second half to play. So we had to believe. Okay. I'm just going to move this over here. Okay. So, all right. So, we're going to take a look at this. I got Tankathon open right now. So this was what I did at the beginning of the year. I've done this every year since I've done the show. Win totals for each team. Who do I think is going to be really, really bad? Who do I think is going to be kind of mid? Who do I think is, going to be great? And as you can see immediately, things are not looking great for us. So I'll mark it with the green here. I think it's the green here. And I'll mark in the red for, oh, you can't even see that. Wow. Okay. Well, whatever. We'll mark in with the green when I get it right. We'll mark it with the red when I get it wrong. So let's just jump into it. First of all, the worst team in the league was the Las Vegas Raiders with a record of 3-14. So immediately we're off to a great start. So actually, I know for a fact I got these. Or actually, no, hold on. We're not gonna get ahead of ourselves. So the Raiders, it was a total disaster with Geno. I thought it would be maybe a slightly not as bad disaster. They fired Pete Carroll by the end of the year. Not good. So I thought they would be a little bit better, but they were not. Second team, the New York Jets, with a record of 3-14 as well. So also wrong on the Jets. Yeah, Aaron Glenn, I thought maybe his culture would get them to, 4 wins, 5 wins. Nope. They were really bad. It's hard to win games when you don't get any interceptions, especially when your head coach is a former defensive back. That's just kind of sad. Arizona, I had them. They finished 3-14. I had them as a 10-win team. Yeah, needless to say, I hate them. I hate the Arizona. I thought this was going to be the year. The Arizona Cardinals, I thought maybe they were going to finally, take the next step. I didn't know if Matthew Stafford was going to be healthy. His back was questionable. All right? Give me a break. All right. Next, we got the Tennessee Titans, who finished 3-14. And finally, I am correct. Give that a check. Yeah, I mean, there's not much to say. There's a reason they got the number 1 overall pick. They ended up firing their head coach before the end of the year. By the way, all of these teams, except for the New York Jets so far, fired their head coach. So I guess that tells you why they're the Jets, and the other teams are, I guess the other teams aren't that successful either. But anyway, yeah, Cam Ward, he was fine, especially down the stretch. He kind of started to show some stuff. That team has very little talent, and obviously they needed a change in culture. So they brought in who was it they hired? Did they hire Stefanski? I don't know who they hired, but anyway. Now we got the New York Giants. They finished with a record of 4-13. So I got that one correct as well. So look at me. Yeah. They ended up firing their head coach. No more Brian Daboll. I know I think he just got hired as the offensive coordinator for the Titans, which is pretty neat. But look, I wasn't a believer in the Jackson Dart experience. It seemed like it was kind of working for them for a little bit, but then he was getting hurt, and it was a disaster. It just was not good in New York. They hired Robert Saleh. Thank you. The Titans hired Robert Saleh as their head coach. And the Giants hired John Harbaugh. So I guess both of the teams that I got right have new, better coaches. I guess. I don't know. Cleveland, they finished with a record of 5-12, so got that one wrong as well. The thing I didn't get wrong, though, was that Cleveland was a total disaster. Kevin Stefanski fired Shedeur Sanders. They were on a QB carousel all year. It was just laughable. But it is Cleveland after all. So, the Stefanski getting fired was not the right move. Stefanski was not the problem in Cleveland, but they did need to move on. But now they're just head coachless. So this is really the worst of both worlds. They fire their only good coach, and now they don't have a coach. So that's not fun at all. Washington Commanders, they finished with a record of 5-12. I had them as a 10-win team. I, like many people, drank the Jaden Daniels Kool-Aid. Now, granted, he was hurt much of this year, but look, we've seen this story before with the Washington Redskins with Robert Griffin III. I know now they're the Commanders, so they've removed the Redskin past from themselves. They're now the Commanders, but you can take the Redskins out of Washington, but you can't take the Washington out of the Redskins. I don't know where I was going with that. Anyway, they were severely disappointing team. When you got to put out Marcus Mariota as your quarterback, things aren't going well. The New Orleans Saints, they finished 6-12. I will say I was very impressed by the Saints this year, especially down the stretch. Tyler Shuck, maybe they got a guy. Late in the rounds, he showed some pretty decent stuff. I thought they were going to be absolutely terrible. I thought they genuinely could have not won a game all year. But they ended up winning 6 games. Kellen Moore doing a decent job for year 1, get to 6 wins. You'll take that, especially for a team that desperately needs to get back on track. And in a division as poor as the NFC South, they certainly could. Next, the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, this was one I also had as a 10-win team. I really, truly thought that Patrick Mahomes could just will that team to 10 wins. I thought there was nothing that could stop them from getting to 10 wins. But then he tore his ACL, and then Gardner Minshew tore his ACL, and then, that was that. They were not good to begin with. They were just stumbling around. They were not good. But, you can understand why I had them at 10 wins. Okay, nobody's perfect, but come on. All right, up next, the Cincinnati Bengals, 6-11. I was so close. I had them as a 7-win team, but they won just 6. Yeah, I mean, Joe Burrow, he got hurt there in the middle of the season again. Starting to become a trend with Joe Burrow getting hurt, unable to stay healthy. Obviously, that's as much on the organization not building around him well. But yeah, it's unfortunate. Cincinnati's just a dumpster fire. The fact that Zach Taylor is still their head coach to me is just unacceptable. I don't know how you can be a Bengals fan. The Dolphins, they finished with a record of 7-10. So I got those guys exactly right. So I'll give myself a little check mark there. Yeah, I mean, they ended up firing Mike McDaniel. Things were not going well. They lost Tyreek Hill. Tua Tagovailoa gets benched by the end of the year. It's funny, the tank for Tua, that was their whole thing, and it has led them to literally no success. Like, no division titles, no I don't think they ever won a playoff game either. Like, it's just been really unfortunate. They had that electric offense a couple of seasons ago, and it's just a disaster now. Like, it's unfortunate. I think it's pretty much the end of Tua. And I don't know where they go from here. They might be tanking for their next quarterback, tanking for Arch Manning. I don't know. Is he going to be yeah, he's going to be in the draft next year. Up next, we got the Dallas Cowboys, who finished with a record of 7-9-1. So I just barely got them wrong. I had them as a 4-6 win team. Yeah, I mean, this is what happens when you trade Micah Parsons for a pittance. Your defense was terrible. Your new head coach was unimpressive at best. Yeah, they're just a garbage organization, so they're gonna put out garbage. They're really not all that different from teams like Cincinnati or Miami, for that matter, in terms of how well they run their organization. So up next, we have the Atlanta Falcons, who finished with a record of 8-9. I did get them exactly right because they are mid. They are just always mid. It's unfortunate. Michael Penix gets hurt, so you bring in Kirk Cousins, who is past his prime, but they got so much talent. They end up firing their head coach. It's like, I don't know. The Falcons are just so aggressively mid. I do like that they hire Kevin Stefanski, so I think they might be on a better track, but they're so mid. They're just so awful in mid, and it's frustrating. Up next, this one's going to hurt. The Baltimore Ravens, who finished with a record of 8-9. And I had them as a 13+ win team. I really thought that, especially with the Chiefs, I mean, I wasn't sure. I picked them with the 10 wins, but they heavily disappointed. I thought maybe Mahomes. Jackson was going to come back, ready to go, be on that MVP campaign. I thought the Chiefs, or the Ravens and the Bills, I thought those were the premier quarterbacks in the league and the premier just overall teams. Like, those quarterbacks going to will them to get to wins. And they ended up with a losing record. So, and they could have made the playoffs. They could have, but they missed a field goal. So it is what it is. And they fired John Harbaugh after many, many successful seasons and a Super Bowl. Well, they're entering a new stage. I don't know what's going to work for them, but it is what it is. Tampa Bay, they finished with a record of 8-9 as well. I thought they would be a 10-win team, especially given their division. This is a heavily disappointing year for Tampa Bay. Last year, the year before that, they get eliminated by the Commanders in the first round at home. Then they go out, they lose the division in the final week of the season. It's unfortunate, but, injuries have caught up with them. And I'm still surprised they're keeping Todd Bowles. That's what's amazing, is that they lose that division. They have a terrible record down the stretch, and they're keeping Todd Bowles. Poor Baker Mayfield can't catch a break, man. He goes from one bad organization in the Browns to a really bad organization in Cleveland to a good organization in LA to now another bad organization in Tampa Bay. I don't know, man. It's unfortunate. Up next, the Indianapolis Colts. They finished with a record of 8-9. I got them wrong as well. Look, they got off to a red hot start and then just completely collapsed. And there is like I didn't think very highly of them. I think that where they ended up is basically only because of that red hot start that they got to. Daniel Jones legitimately looked like one of the top quarterbacks in the league. By the end of the year, he's hurt. And even when he was playing, they were still just losing games. I think they were always a bit of a paper tiger, but you know, it's an unfortunate way their season ended, obviously. But they might have the right guys in place. They might have the right culture. They might be much closer than we might feel comfortable. And we'll see how Daniel Jones works out. Maybe they try to develop Riley Leonard. No, that's not going to happen. But either way, it was I think a weirdly depressing year for the Colts given how they started. You know, if you would have just said they are going to end up 8-9, you'd be like, oh, okay, that's good. But the way that the season started and the way the collapse happened, it just, yeah, not good. And then, depressingly, we have 9-8, the Detroit Lions. Obviously, I got this one very wrong. Incredibly disappointing season from my Detroit Lions. Offensive line injuries, injuries in the secondary, bad offensive coordinator. Never really could get much going. It was just a lost season. Probably a retooling year for the team, if we're really being honest with ourselves. Finally lost the division after back-to-back division titles, missed the playoffs. Very disappointing stuff from Detroit. But I do think with their new offensive coordinator and Drew Petzing, and then they bring in Mike Kafka as well to help their offensive situation, I hope that the coaching hires this time will be much better, but they're going to have to fix their offensive line. That's for sure. Minnesota at 9-8. I did get that one exactly right. Part of the reason they were 9-8 is because they got to play the Detroit Lions twice, and that is unfortunate, but it is what it is. I mean, those are two wins that they really, frankly, should not have had. JJ McCarthy was terrible, and Max Brosmer was terrible, except when they played Detroit. Then they both. Well, I guess Brosmer didn't play well when he played Detroit, but either way, the Vikings. They bet on the wrong horse. They should have stuck with Sam Darnold, and they did not. So they end up in Midtown, unfortunately for them. Moving along, though, into the playoff teams. So the 8-9 Carolina Panthers, I got them wrong. I did not believe in Bryce Young, and I still don't really believe in Bryce Young. But, hey, man, they got a division title. They hosted a playoff game. They gave the Rams a run for their money. That was a Rams team that made the NFC Championship game. Overall, a pretty good season for Carolina. Really, you can't be upset if you're a Panthers fan. Especially, I went into this season not expecting much from them, and they went out there and they played really damn well. So good for the Panthers. But I definitely did not have much of a pulse on them. Up next, the Green Bay Packers, who finished with a record of 9-7-1. I got them wrong just barely as well. Very disappointing year for the Packers, given the way they attacked the offseason. Obviously trading for Micah Parsons, who gets hurt down the stretch. You've had Jordan Love miss some games, and then the just awful collapses that they had against the Bears twice. Once the final time in the playoffs on Amazon Prime with the whole world watching. I guess the other one everybody's watching, but a disappointing end of the year for the Packers, but they should. What just happened? Someone just dropped something above me. Anyway, hopefully everybody's okay. Just a disappointing year for the Pack. But couldn't happen to a nicer team. Anyway, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they finished 10-7. I got them just barely wrong. I was not a believer in Aaron Rodgers, but fortunately for him, he managed to get some bailout games, including against Detroit, where we completely sold, and against Baltimore, where Baltimore completely sold. But yeah, hey, by the end of the year, Mike Tomlin retires, steps away, whatever it is. Now they bring in Mike McCarthy as their head coach, and Aaron Rodgers, I think, is still going to be their quarterback, but I think he's a free agent. So I don't know what world this is a successful year for the Steelers. But hey, maybe they're going to embrace the tank this year. So up next, the LA Chargers. They finished 11-6. I got this one right. Look at me. I got Seth's Chargers right. So not the way you wanted to end the year. Another Justin Herbert playoff loss. This is, beginning to become a little bit of a trend. Like big games, little Justin. Now, granted, again, no offensive line. So the fact that they finished where they did is pretty impressive. I guess in that regard, you can say that's a success. And they bring in Mike McDaniel to be their offensive coordinator. That's definitely going to help them out. But they lose, was it Jesse Minter? They lose Jesse Minter, their defensive coordinator. And they had a really good defense this year, and they've had a really good defense ever since he took over. So still a good year for the Chargers. It's really just a matter of getting healthy and adding on to some of the depth on the offensive line so that poor Justin Herbert is not running for his life. Up next, the Philadelphia Eagles. They finished 11-6. I got them exactly right. Despite the 11-6 record, I'd still say overall a very disappointing year for Philly. They kind of regressed right back to the mean. Saquon Barkley did not look like Saquon Barkley of last year. Jalen Hurts really wasn't all that impressive. Overall, the offense was just terrible. The defense was fine, or at least it was playing at the same kind of performance level that you expect. But overall, disappointing year for the Eagles. But once again, just like the Packers, couldn't have happened to a nicer team. Up next, the Jaguars. They finished 13-4, and I got them completely wrong. I was not a believer in Trevor Lawrence this season, but they handled that and then some. They had an excellent year winning their division, hosting a playoff game, coming very close to beating Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills in the playoffs. I think they got a bright future ahead of them. But it really is just a matter of, is Trevor Lawrence going to consistently be good? Is he going to, get himself back on track? And if this season is any indicator, then yes. But hey, this is also a team that didn't have Travis Hunter. He was their big first round pick that they traded up to go get. I think Liam Cohen, maybe he's a trend. Maybe he's the culture builder there in Jacksonville. I know people made fun of him when he got hired, but hey, looks like a pretty good hire to me. Up next, the Chicago Bears at 11-6. I got this one wrong. However, I will say I think the Bears are still fraudulent. I think we saw it in the playoffs when they lost to the Rams. They were playing with a lot of house money. They were playing a lot of games where basically they would just have these crazy fourth quarter comebacks, which are not sustainable for success. But they had a great season. They won the division. They won a playoff game against a divisional opponent in Green Bay. So they're happy about the year they had, but we'll have to see how this plays out long-term for Chicago. Ben Johnson immediately looks like a good hire for them. But again, they're winning a lot of games by the skin of their teeth. So we'll see if that will carry over to next year. Up next, the Buffalo Bills, who finished 12-5. So I got that one wrong, but just barely. Yeah, I mean, the way the season ended for Buffalo, obviously, is not ideal. Josh Allen did not play a good playoff game in that Denver game, but he came very close to winning that game. And frankly, he probably should have won that game if not for an awful, egregious call from the referees, completely screwing him there. But another year, another Buffalo exit from the playoffs, and they finally had enough of Sean McDermott. They sent him packing, and they hired Joe Brady, their offensive coordinator, to take over. So I'll just say this. That's either going to work out really well or really not well. It's either going to be they're going to be Super Bowl contenders or win the Super Bowl, or they're going to be putrid or just like it's just all going to kind of fall apart. There's really not much in between. So we'll see. San Francisco, they finished 12-5. I got them dead wrong. Despite all of their injuries, Kyle Shanahan and Brock Purdy sometimes manages to have some success. I don't know how. This 49ers team was about as injured as they were last year, but yet they still were winning games. I don't know how. I guess in that regards, you feel confident about Kyle Shanahan as your head coach, despite the many big-time, primetime losses. But you also lose Robert Saleh, so you got to have that there, which is unfortunate. But the fact they finished 12-5 with other injuries, again, pretty successful year for San Francisco. You got to feel good about it. Obviously, you didn't like how it ended, but a successful year nonetheless, given the injuries. 12-5, Houston Texans. I did get this one right. That defense in Houston is very, very good. Unfortunately, that offense is very, very bad, and C.J. Stroud might not even be that guy. He had one of the worst playoff runs, if you could call it that, this year. He played completely horribly. It seemed like every other throw was an interception, or he was fumbling it, or it was just things were just going wrong for Houston. they're probably not going to give him that max deal. But in my mind, I don't know how much choice you have. Like, unless you have a season where it just totally falls apart and CJ Stroud is not there, you're probably going to keep him unless you can, find somebody to trade for. I don't know who that would be. I like maybe you go all in, you trade for Jalen Hurts. Who knows? I don't know. It's just, yeah, it's terrible for Houston the way their season ended. But their defense is very good, so they're going to be around. Just a matter of whether or not they can get something going offensively. And then last four here, we have the LA Rams, who finished with a record of 12-5. I got them wrong as well. Look, I wasn't sure about Matthew Stafford's status as far as his spine. That was a whole thing, was that his back was not working. But, Matthew Stafford had probably the best season of his career. Finally got that All-Pro. Could get the MVP. We'll see on that one. They got to the NFC Championship game, and it came down to a fourth down that they couldn't convert. So, look, the Rams very well were a Super Bowl team, so I got them dead wrong here. I thought that maybe Matthew Stafford was going to fall back and they were just going to regress offensively, and I didn't really trust their defense, obviously. So, up next, Denver, finishing 14-3. I got them wrong. They were one of the best teams in the league, obviously. You hate how the season ended for them, but hey, it's Sean Payton, so who cares? Bo Nix did not really play amazingly, but he did get them to the NFC or AFC Championship game. So you got to give him some credit in that regard, but the season ended the way that it did with the injury and everything. It's unfortunate, but that's how it goes sometimes. And finally, we have the final two teams remaining. The New England Patriots, who I had very wrong, Drake May, and the rest of that, and Mike, what is his name? Why am I blanking on his name? Not Mike McDaniel. Mike Vrabel. Mike Vrabel, they completely changed the culture there in New England. They are right back to their winning ways. I got them dead wrong. I didn't think that their wide receiver core was good enough. And granted, there wasn't a whole lot of big names. Their biggest name was Stephon Diggs. A lot of other guys that, frankly, I just didn't know about. And so I got to give respect to New England for, finally getting themselves back into the winning ways. But I got them totally wrong. And then finally, Seattle, they finished 14-3. They won the Sam Darnold sweepstakes. I was not a believer. I was not a believer, not a member of the Darnold community. But they managed to not only exceed expectations, but blow them out of the water. I mean, these were two teams, Seattle and New England, did not make the playoffs last year. And here we are, in the Super Bowl. So shout out Seattle. I got them dead wrong. I thought they would be at most a 9-win team. I didn't know that it's hard to trust, with Cooper Kupp. He was kind of coming in and out from injuries, past his prime. You're bringing in Sam Darnold. Is he going to be the solution? And the answer, of course, was yes, because Jackson Smith and Jigba and Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker with Sam Darnold at the helm, that's a team. That is a team. So let's count up. How many did I get right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There are 32 teams in this league, and I got 7 teams right in their win total. So what this little exercise tells us all is that predicting preseason is very hard. Predicting win totals in the preseason is incredibly difficult. So here we are. Now, this adds to my thought because I think, for the most part, going into the year, I think this was a pretty reasonable, graph. I mean, obviously, some people could, disagree. That's fine. Some people might have been higher on the Patriots or higher on Jack. Whatever. Totally understand. This was pretty reasonable. And then basically all of them are wrong. All of them. So we'll have fun doing this next year. Hopefully I do a little bit better. But something tells me I'm just not going to do it. All right. We got a lot of chats here I want to get to here. Detroit fan, before we get into the final segment. All right. What do our teams do with the Cardinals? Lions hired their OC Drew Petzing, and MSU hires their O-line coach, Winston Delata. Huh. Didn't know that. Did not know that. Hired Salah. Stefanski went there. Patriots return when the Chiefs fall apart. I didn't even figure that out. That's a good point. If Miami lands Arch, it'll be funny since their quarterback right now is Quinn Ewers. Very true. Very true. Tampa started out on fire. They never recovered from the Lions destroying them with replacement players on Monday night. It's so true. Yeah, the Legion of Whom exposed the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they just never came back from that. It was Monday Night Football. You were correct. Colts sold their future, so they got to stick with Jones. Yeah, it's unfortunate. They got no first-round picks the next couple of years because they wanted to go get Sauce Gardner. And look, it might work out for them in as much as Sauce Gardner is a very good player, but he didn't really play that much for them. And, I kind of respect the grind. They thought maybe this was their year, go all in, just try to win it this year. It didn't work out, and they're going to be hurting from that for the next couple seasons probably. We saw glimpses of the Lions offense being great, but honestly, that was in spite of John Morton and the fact that it was the same offense from 2024, just replaced Patrick with Tesla. Pretty much. I think that's true. Like, the scheme was not a good fit, so it was really just, the talent level of the players pulling through at different points. So, still justified for me to blame Brad Holmes for the Packers landing Parsons? No. I mean, I don't think it was justified to begin with. I don't like. There's no evidence that we have to suggest that Jerry Jones was even communicating to the rest of the league that he was trading Micah Parsons. If I had to guess, he probably wasn't, because he wanted to make the deal as good as he could make it. So he was probably limiting the teams to teams that he thought he could get the best deal from, which namely was not Detroit. And even based on the package, I don't think we would have been able to give him what he would have wanted, which would have probably involved trading Aleem McNeil. But Aleem McNeil at that point was hurt, so he probably was not going to be interested in that anyway. But anyhow, I don't see why Brad Holmes would be blamed for Micah Parsons getting traded to the Packers. Anyway, and I talk about the Michigan State game. It was going to be tough. Wasn't expecting this, especially right before we play. Yeah, right. I mean, it's an 8-point game, so they're in it, but they just can't get enough. They can't get enough of a run going, and just like that, now it's a 10-point game. So doesn't look good for Michigan State here on the road. Said Vrabel was a good hire for the Pats, but was not expecting that. Yeah, 100%. Another Atlanta fumble. They interviewed both McDonald and Vrabel for their head coaching position 2 years ago, and both are now in the Super Bowl. Wow. I did not realize that. That is depression. Man, you got to feel for those Falcons fans, man. They still have not recovered from blowing that Super Bowl. You really got to wonder, if they don't blow that Super Bowl, just how different would the league be? Would they still have Dan Quinn? Would Dan Quinn would never have ended up on Washington? He would have never ended up on wasn't he on Dallas? Wasn't he Dallas's DC? They would have never had to hire Arthur Smith. They would have never. I guess they would never have hired Raheem Morris, which that was just a disaster. At the time, I thought it was a terrible hire, just because it was like, okay, well, this guy was already an interim for you, and he wasn't really all that good, and so you're gonna bring him back. The only time in my mind that you should ever be hiring your interim is if it is literally the guy took over in that season. Like with the Giants, they opted not to hire Mike Kafka, however you pronounce it. I think that's the right move, because even if Kafka at some point might be a good head coach, he wasn't necessarily ready right then and there. So, yeah, anyway. Raheem Morris over Vrabel and McDonald. Man. That's tough. That's tough, man. Being a Lions fan is tough. That's tough. This is true. This is really, this is the thing that I think I can appreciate. As much as Petzing being hired, obviously I wanted McDaniel. That was my whole thing. I wanted McDaniel. But Petzing plus Kafka Okay. I mean, like, I think the scheme fit is going to be pretty good. So I'm feeling good about the coaching hires. Now it's more about let's bring in some personnel, let's sign some free agents, let's make some trades. Let's see some new faces on this team because obviously the players we had on the field weren't good enough. So, yeah. Anyway, let's just stop sharing and get back to this. But that was fun, wasn't it? That was fun. We got a little look back on history. I'm going to I'd like to save this. Save as PNG picture. I'm going to save it over my 2025 win total. Yeah, just replace it. Yeah, I don't care. I don't even know why it's asking me that. Maybe an insurance move since I heard Scotty Montgomery might leave for the Ravens OC. I heard they requested an interview, so there's no guarantee one way or the other. But yeah, I mean, like, Scotty Montgomery's been pretty good. So yeah, potentially, but still, I mean, like, Kafka obviously showed some acumen with the Giants there down the stretch when Daboll went down. So Michigan State has 1 point off turnovers. 1. That's crazy. That's crazy. Oh, whoa. Speaking of turnovers, wow. Michigan State, that was crazy. Oh, Rutgers guy is down. I got to say, Scott, number 8, number 6? Brother's got to change his hair or something. I mean, he looks ridiculous. He's got like pigtails. How are the Red Wings? Oh, how are the Red Wings? I don't know. Let's see. 5 minutes ago, Red Wings and Kings are tied 0-0. Red Wings minus 1.5. That's the goal line, I think. Okay. All right. So let's move on here to the final segment. And it's actually interesting because we're not going to end the show with the picks like we normally do, obviously, because the Super Bowl is not this week. It's going to be next week. Because they decided to move the Pro Bowl to before the Super Bowl, which is the single worst decision that the NFL could have made about the Pro Bowl. Because in moving it to before the Super Bowl, all of the Super Bowl players opt out. Namely, some of the best players on the 2 best teams in the league at the end of the year. So that makes it absurd. So absurd, mind you, that Shedeur Sanders is in the Pro Bowl. Shedeur Sanders didn't even start for his team to begin the year because all the other AFC quarterbacks are either hurt or opt out. Ridiculous. Just stop it. Just stop doing it. If this is what it's become, because just like the NBA All-Star Game, nobody wants to try. Nobody ever wants to do anything fun for the fans. Nobody ever wants to take any sort of risk. Just stop. Just stop. Stop. It's not worth it. Clearly, it's not worth it. Anyways, I kind of want to wait until this Michigan State goes to commercial here. We're down 9. Can we get a basket? Tang for 3? No. 10 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. Pro Bowl. Yeah, this is why it's hard to use Pro Bowls as like a metric for players, especially in the modern age, just because of all these opt-outs. Like, to me, the sports reference, any of these encyclopedias, you can't be counting this as a Pro Bowl season for Shedeur Sanders. You can't. You just can't. Like, you have to. There has to be another category. I mean, I know that all pros have always meant more anyway, but now they mean now the only one that means anything. So anyway, before we get to the last segment, I'm actually got to go to the bathroom. So I'll be right back. Oh, Michigan State's got the outdoor game? So wait, college hockey is doing the outdoor game in an actual cold environment, but the NHL will do it in Miami in an indoor stadium? Trey Augustine is never going to be a Red Wing, I'm convinced. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, I know he's still in college, so it's a whole different situation, but I don't know. Like the way the fact that it's taken so long for Sebastian Cossa to make it to the NHL level, that to me tells me that Trey Augustine is not going to make it to the team until like 2030. like he's not gonna, he'll be on the team maybe in 2028. That's just how we roll. That's just how we roll. So anyway, we're not going to talk about the Red Wings right now, but we will talk about our beloved Detroit Pistons. So I am going to give you some team stats for this Pistons team as we enter close to the trade deadline here. First thing is first, let's start about the team strength, which is its defense. Defensively, now I pulled these stats yesterday, so I'm not sure how accurate they are today. Obviously, these numbers change, and the Pistons will play tonight as well. They are second in points allowed per game. They are second in field goal percentage allowed per game. They are seventh in three-point percentage allowed per game. And they are fourth in blocks and third in steals per game. So the defense is electric. And it's because of guys like Isaiah Stewart, Ron Holland, Asar Thompson. All of those guys play excellent, excellent defense. And Jalen Duren, for that matter. Here's your problem, if you can call it that. Offensively, this team needs some work. Now, I'm going to go through these stats as well. Basically the same stats as we just heard. They're 10th in points per game. Not bad. 6th in field goal percentage. Pretty good. They are 18th in three-point percentage. 18th. Meaning below average. But despite all of it, they're second in point differential. So this, of course, makes it a little bit easy for Trajan Langdon and company to figure out, okay, we're still one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. Just recently, they were listed as the number one team in the NBA in the power rankings, which I think is pretty incredible. I'm still not sure if I would put them over the Oklahoma City Thunder, but definitely the best team in the Eastern Conference right now. So the need is pretty obvious. You need to get another shooter around Cade. As much as I like Duncan Robinson, as much as I even like, guys like Jaden Ivey, they're not shooting threats for the most. I mean, like Duncan Robinson is a little bit more, but Karis LeVert has been very disappointing. He really hadn't played much, and when he has, it's not been much. Duncan Robinson has done well, but you need more. You're going to need to be better than 18th in the league for shooting from three if you want to win the NBA Finals. You just how the game is, Now here's the problem. There is a certain name of a certain player on a certain team who terrifies me. And it's not because I think he's a bad player. It's not even because I think he is going to be traded to the Pistons or traded, period. But it's a player that many, many, many fans really want. And that player is one Michael Porter Jr., one of the members of the 2023 Denver Nuggets. So an NBA champion, certainly knows how to win in playoff games and play well enough. Look, let me give you stats for this year. 36 games, 24 points, 7 boards, 3 assists, shooting 47% from the field, 38% from three. He's got an 85% free throw percentage, an effective field goal percentage of 57.7%, 2.6 win share on Sports Reference, on Basketball Reference. So you look at those numbers, and you're like, well, it's a lot better than Karis LeVert. It's a lot better than Jaden Ivey, frankly. Like that is obviously looks like a plus. Here's my fear, and I want to give you guys this. He is playing the second most minutes per game in his career right now. 32 minutes per game. Now, granted, 24-25 last year, he played 33 minutes. Now, he is attempting the most field goals in his career, 18.4. The closest he got to that was 13.6 last year. And again, Denver let him walk. So, or I think they traded him. I don't. Either way, they didn't bring him back. Basically, he is attempting the most threes in his career, 9.4. Second closest was 7.3. Excuse me. The only good player on Brooklyn. Like, let me actually just pull up their roster really quick. Like, maybe you're a big Nick Claxton fan. You know, maybe you like Cam Thomas. I don't even know who EJ Little. He's only played in 9 games, but he's basically their entire team. Nick Claxton also is on there. He's a factor of sorts. But it's Michael Porter Jr. is their best scorer, and they are almost certainly going to trade him. The question is, if you trade for him, how much is it going to hurt? Because look, you're going to probably have to part with a player like a Jaden Ivey or a Ron Holland or Tobias Harris, or, you know, it's point is, you're not going to like it. You're not going to like what you got to get rid of. And I know Pistons fans, they're not going to like what they got to get rid of. And for a player like Michael Porter Jr., there's just something about this where I just feel like, okay, if we trade for this guy, he's going to cost us. It not cost us players. I mean, he's going to do some stupid stuff. One of his nicknames is Never Swing the Rock, which means he's going to huck up some shots where you're like, what the hell are you doing? Why are you shooting, Michael? What are you doing? That is the kind of player that he is. So, unfortunately, he probably is the best available as far as shooters go. That is reasonable that you can get. I mean, maybe if you want to say we're just going to magically end up with Devin Booker somehow, like we're going to pull a Luka Doncic to the Lakers trade and just they'll just say, we didn't like how Devin Booker wore glasses or something. But MPJ, he is a very likely candidate to get traded. The Pistons are the best team in the Eastern Conference, and they need shooting. So it's like kind of perfect for that, right? Like that's like he on paper, he looks like the perfect guy for the Pistons. But there's just something in my spirit. There's something in my soul that just gets the ick. Like that, like if we trade for this guy, I'm not necessarily going to be like angry. I'll be like, oh, okay, they're really being serious. But I'm afraid, okay? I'm like the opposite of Macaulay Culkin in Home Alone, where he said, I'm not afraid anymore. I'm afraid. I'm still afraid. Like there's just something, there's like bad juju. Like you trade for this guy, I just feel like your offense is going to revolve around him way too much. He's going to take too many shots. You're going to be worse on defense. I don't know. All right. So if you're a Pistons fan or just an NBA fan and you think that the Pistons need to trade for this guy, please alleviate my fear. I want to believe. He's obviously a championship winning player. He was a very integral part of that Nuggets team that won it a couple of years ago. But I just something about it, man. All right. And maybe it's just I'm being a little paranoid, but I don't like it. I don't like it. So we'll see. Obviously, the trade deadline is not until mid next week. I think it is February the 5th or something like that. Okay. Calendar doesn't want to pull up. Oh, there it is. I think it's February the 5th. Okay, now it doesn't want to go away. There we go. So we'll see if they end up making a move. I think I could be wrong for them to not make any move, but I'm not sure that this move would be like an easy slam dunk. I'm just saying, don't think, oh, we're going to get this guy and then we're just going to automatically be the best shooting team ever because he's averaging 24 points a game and almost 40% from three. Just slow your roll. All right? There's a lot of other things to consider about this guy that could come back to bite us. That's not an excuse not to do it, but just know that it's not as easy as maybe some fans or some people in the media might want you to believe it is. So, anyways, that's all I got. Pistons are a very good team. Defensively, they're elite. They can certainly win on the back of that defense. But I'm gonna need some 3-point shooting. I'm gonna need some boost in that to really believe that this team can actually win the championship this year. They're certainly the team to beat out of the East, as far as I'm concerned. But we'll see how the deadline goes. Because if you stand pat, the momentum is gonna swing downward, especially if other teams around you start adding, like Boston, like New York, etc. Oh my gosh, that ball just got launched into the air, and somehow Rutgers ends up with it. This is just their kind of night, isn't it? Anyway, that's all I got. So, fun stuff. Go Pistons. They play tonight. Maybe they'll beat, you know what? They'll beat the Nuggets for Michael Porter Jr. tonight. Okay, Michigan State has cut the lead to 5. All right? We have life. We just need a couple more stops here. Just need a couple more stops. Our defense is capable of it. Just got to get a couple more stops. It's a 2-possession game. Sadiq Bey reunion. How is he playing? Oh, gosh. Look at Sadiq Bey. He was an all-rookie. This is where the all-rookie is just total nonsense. Like, this guy was an all-rookie. He's terrible. I mean, you know, he's averaging 33% from 3, which is fine, I guess. I mean, maybe if he's cheap, I wouldn't hate it. I prefer him over Karis LeVert, but man, I didn't even know he was on the Pelicans. That's crazy. That's crazy. Remember when we traded him for James Wiseman? Remember that? Crazy. Jaren Jackson Jr. I don't know, man. I mean, I like it. I think he's a good player. But I don't think he's not a shooter, really. I mean, he's a power forward, right? Like, he shoots 35% from 3, which again is not terrible, but nobody really thinks of him as a 3-point shooter. I don't think. Like, you know, he never. Last year he was 37%, but he's usually around the 310 to 340, 50 range ish. Now, granted, in his rookie season, first couple of years, he was averaging close to 40% from 3. But I don't think he was attempting a whole lot. Yeah, he was attempting just a couple. So, yeah, he's not much of a shooter. He's really the Pistons need shooters. So as much as I would like Jaren Jackson, because obviously he's a Spartan, but he's a center. He's not really doing much for you. And you don't want too many centers. We already experienced what it was like to have like a million centers on the team. Pistons got an amount of Western teams since they got the Nuggets, Suns, Warriors, and Nuggets again. Well, they did just play the Sacramento Kings, and that's a team out of the West as well. I'm old enough to remember when the Pistons couldn't beat Western Conference teams. That was fun. They didn't seem to have much problem beating the Kings last night, or a couple of nights ago. Wait, I already looked at that. Pistons don't play OKC until the end of February? Really? Huh. That's crazy. Tobias Harris gets brought up in a lot of these mocks, but he is an impending free agent, so that gives us the talk of, do we re-sign him or trade him for his replacement? Yeah, I mean, that's probably I wouldn't mind. I like Tobias Harris. He's been a really good kind of leader vet figure, but obviously you can definitely get better than him. I wouldn't mind trading him for his replacement if there's a younger player or a player that's more controllable. You could throw Tobias Harris in there to a team that could use that kind of leadership, that veteran presence that Harris gives you. But look, there's a reason that other teams have moved on from him. There's a reason that the Pistons moved on from him initially. There's a reason that Philadelphia moved on from him. He's been in the league for well over 10 years, but he's never been an all-star. He's never really settled anywhere. He's a journeyman, but he's found a little bit of a spot here in Detroit, and he found a spot in Philadelphia for a good chunk. I just don't see us re-signing him. I don't, but I also wouldn't be horribly upset if we do, depending on the cost, as Rutgers can't miss a 3, man. This is craziness. I traded him for Blake. That's right. No, I know. That's what I mean. I mean, like, we traded him for a better player in Blake Griffin, but obviously we saw how that worked out. I mean, Blake Griffin was fine, but oh my gosh, let me turn it over again. We got it to within 5, and then we just immediately give up a 3 and then turn over the ball. I mean, I can't even be mad. Like, they're just hitting them. Like, it's just, like, absurd. Like, it's not like we're leaving them wide open and they're just hitting open looks. Cohen Carr was on him. I don't know, man. I don't know. Anyway, that's the end of the show. I didn't have anything else here. So hopefully Michigan State can come away with a comeback here, or else I'm going to be sad. With that being said, though, I'll see you guys next week, I guess. Like, we're back. There's no picks, so it's weird ending the show without the picks. Again, it's like we're nearing the end of another NFL season. We're going to have to start talking about other sports here. So, you know, that's where we're at. So if you enjoyed, please hit the like. Please hit the subscribe button. I really, really do appreciate it. And we'll be back next week, talk all the sporting news of the week, and probably get more of an in-depth preview of the Super Bowl and a look ahead for the trade deadline in the NBA. I think that's next week. We'll see. And almost Tiger Talk. I'm not happy about that one, but it is what it is. All right. Talk to you guys next week. Have a great rest of your night, great weekend, and hopefully Michigan State doesn't make us all sad. So have a good night, everybody. See you later. Good night. Bye-bye.